Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing and a truly remarkable conversation with Bill Hancock. He's just stepped down as the executive director of the college football playoff, and when you enter into a conversation about his life and times, you expect it to be an amazing story, and then it exceeds it. He has achieved the unique trifecta at the highest echelon of intercollegiate athletics for his full-time director of the NCAA Final Four, first executive director of the Bowl Championship Series, and the first executive director of the college football playoff. But that just scratches the surface of his amazing story, which has been filled with tragedy and the loss of his son that he chronicled in a fantastic book, Riding with the Blue Moth. And he used that to help others and help himself in writing about a journey all across America on a bicycle in just 36 days. He's run marathons. He's run just about everything you can run. He's a native of Hobart, Oklahoma, and even that part of the conversation is amazing because Hobart looks exactly like it should be Hobart, but people from Hobart call it Hobart, and they know you're from somewhere else if you call it Hobart, which I did. Anyway, that's just the beginning of tremendous stories, heartfelt memories, and just an amazing journey, and all of his fantastic accomplishments, which has resulted in him being in numerous halls of fame and recognized by a list of honors that's too long to even take the time to read right here, is only matched by his humble nature and his downplaying of all of his tremendous impact in college athletics for years and years and years to, well, just the national championship game in college football that just passed. He's been involved with the Olympics, and he also is the unofficial historian of Hobart, Oklahoma, which he wrote a book about. It's all wrapped up in this amazing conversation with Bill Hancock. He is our Kansas City Profile presented by Easton Roofing.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Did you experience hail damage last year and never got the work done? Most insurance companies only give you a year to get the roof fixed. And if you don't get it done, you could possibly not be compensated in full for the replacement of your roof. If you've been procrastinating getting that damaged roof taken care of, give us a call at 913-257-5426. And we'll send out an expert to help you through the process. We're never pushy, we're just here to help. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Visions' goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you. Bill, Hobart, Oklahoma is home and your birthplace and basically a small community that we'll probably revisit more than a couple of times here. But tell me a little bit about young Bill Hancock in Hobart, Oklahoma.
Well, I have to say, Danny, one thing is we say Hobart.
Okay, there we go.
And if you go to like Hobart, Indiana, which is up by Chicago, well, in the town they say Hobart. But they always tell me, people from there say, oh, if you're not from here, you say Hobart. And that's how we know you're not from here because of the way you pronounce it. But however you pronounce it, little farm community. I was a city boy in a farm community. My dad owned a small business, and there were dozens of small business people in our town back then. And it happened that my dad's small business was a newspaper. Great way to grow up. wouldn't have traded it with anybody. Learned to read, learned to keep score, followed sports like crazy. But the topic around our dinner table was, small town politics. It could not have grown up in any better atmosphere than the one I chose, or the one that was chosen for me.
You have 3 siblings. Where did you line up in that lineup?
I was the baby. My parents lost the child, and then my brother was 21 and my sister was 18 when I was born.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I grew up with not only my mom and dad, but with these 2 loving brother and sisters who I think were probably a little embarrassed that my parents got pregnant in their 40s. And the baby turned out to be me. My brother always told me, but my siblings are both deceased, all 3 deceased
Right.
now. But my brother always told me, make sure you tell people that we had the same mother and dad. that our dad did not go out and get a trophy wife. So,
Right, and that always seems to be followed by a little toddler that maybe has no business being in the world, but thank goodness you did. And
Yes.
so that you almost had 4 parents.
I did. Absolutely. Loved it. And my brother and sister both said, we loved you so much. You were so cute. And we really, they were both proud that they had a big say in how I was raised. And how I was raised was with, politics, newspapering, but mostly sports. My brother and sister loved sports, and they talked it all the time. And looking back, I was kind of almost preordained to get into the sports business.
Right. And also, you were very musical. You loved music, and your mom was a piano teacher, right?
Yeah, Dad was a violin player, went to the University of Missouri. My brother and sister did not get the musical gene, but I got it. Some way I got it. And I'm so grateful for that. And our sons got it, and our grandkids have gotten the same gene. So that started with my parents. And my brother and sister always used to kind of make fun of me about, we got other genes, but we didn't get the music. And I'm very grateful for that.
You've joked about the fact that you were involved in sports, but the fact that Hobart is a small town allowed you to participate when maybe otherwise you would not. But tell me about your involvement in sports as you grew up.
You had to participate in everything in our town. There just weren't enough kids. So you got to be in the senior play, you got to be in the band, you got to be in the choir, you got to play football, basketball, baseball, track. Although while I love sports, I really wasn't an athlete. And I learned in junior high that, hey, in the band, they have girls. So I left football and basketball and baseball too to go join the band. Never regretted that decision, but kept in touch with sports because I was the sports editor of the paper, covered everything in high school. So I learned how to be a newspaper person, a sports writer in high school.
And so you're in high school, and basically was the die cast at that point where you started to work on the school newspaper? Did you pretty much know that was what you were going to do, follow in basically your dad's footsteps?
Yeah, I did, Danny. It came so easy. Newspapering came so easy to me. Writing, interviewing people. It was just easy. And so I kind of just fell into it. I studied journalism in college for no reason other than it was easy. And here I am.
Here you are indeed, and you went to the University of Oklahoma. Was that kind of preordained too, just a home state, or was there any thought of going anywhere else?
Yeah, I had applied at OU and been accepted, and also applied at several at Rice and Stanford and Dartmouth. And lo and behold, I was accepted at Dartmouth. And I actually went up to Hanover, New Hampshire to start my college time in Dartmouth, but I was homesick. And I was in love with a little girl back in Oklahoma, so I left. And I was able to get back and start at OU a little bit late that first semester, but they let me in. And the little girl I was in love with is still living with me after 55 years. So I guess it worked out.
I guess it did. How long did you stay at Dartmouth before you decided that it just wasn't for you? It's a beautiful place. I've done hockey games there and such, but home and Nikki does call, but how long did you last?
Oh, probably 6 weeks, not very long. And I always think about the kid that did not get into Dartmouth because
Right.
I took that spot.
Right.
And that young person, I hope he wound up at Harvard or Yale or somewhere. And I always feel bad for whoever that was that I took his spot. And I say his because back then Dartmouth was all male.
Right. Right.
Soon after they began admitting co-eds, thank goodness. But yeah, it was a good experience. Loved it up there, but loved Nikki more, and it all worked out.
So you grew up knowing Nikki, right?
Yeah, we were friends as babies. My sister and her aunt were great pals, and they told stories about hauling us around town and in their cars, and when we were 2 years old. And then I fell for her in high school. We sat next to each other in typing class.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a fabulous typist because I was a piano player.
Right.
And Nikki was a poor typist. So she was always bummed out by the fact that I finished our typing lessons faster than she did. Our typing class was on the second floor of the old high school. And there's a famous story about a kid getting so frustrated with typing that he threw the typewriter out the second floor window.
Wow.
Crashed onto the lawn below. Can't verify that. I do know it wasn't me.
Well, I'll tell you a fun typing story. I basically made a D in high school typing because I spent my childhood, much like you did, in radio and television stations, and I knew how to type, but I knew how to type like everybody typed back then on these non-electric typewriters at first, just slamming away with one or two fingers. And I could type like 100 words a minute, and I refused to learn the right way. But I could type fast. I was the fastest typist in the class, but the teacher wanted me to learn, so I got a D. So there you go. Anyway, that is neither here nor there. Let's move on to your time at the University of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I needed a job, got a job in the print shop at the student newspaper, and kind of figured out while I was back there setting type and setting headlines and making up pages that, hey, I might be good enough to be a reporter here for this paper. So, got on the sports staff at the paper and became sports editor and later main editor of that student newspaper. And found out there was a job in a thing called sports information, which I'd never heard of.
Right.
But you worked in the athletic department. You wrote releases. You kept stats. And, they called me and said, would you like to come over here and be a student worker in our office? You have to give up the newspaper work for the university paper. And I said, man, that job in sports information, that sounds great. I don't know what it's all about, but yeah, sign me up. So that's how I got into athletics, was the SID. A guy named Johnny Keith hired me to be a student assistant. And later, the assistant SID left to go to Southern Illinois to be SID. His name was Glenn Stone, actually. He later became SID at K-State. But he left. I was headed into my senior year, and Johnny Keith came to me and said, we want you to take this full-time job. And I said, but I don't have my degree yet. And he said, we know, but we'll pay your tuition. You only need 6 hours. We'll pay your tuition. And I think, Danny, it was $128.
Right.
And I thought that was more money than I had ever heard of. And I said, yeah, that's great. And so they paid my tuition, paid me a princely salary of $7,000 a year in addition to the tuition. And I started working full-time in athletics my senior year, which was the fall of 1971. So looking back, I really squeezed a lot into my first 3 years of college and kind of regret, taking a full-time job my senior year rather than hanging out and enjoying being a senior.
Right.
But that worked out as well.
And then it was time, through a variety of circumstances, for you to take over the hometown newspaper.
Yeah, sadly, our father passed away, and my brother and I inherited the newspaper. And so I left athletics to go back home and take over the family business with my brother. Loved it, stayed there 4 years. We covered the heck out of sports in our